Hello, my name is Evelina Grant, and I am so excited you are joining part two of Africa and Africans in the Bible. So I'm going to begin to share my screen, and I'm going to, and now I'm going to enlarge it and make it, let's see, put this on here. And great. So here it is, Africa and Africans in the Bible. I'm very excited about this part two of the study of Africa and Africans in the Bible. Be sure if you did not see the first one, you will miss a lot of good information. So I do want to encourage you to go back and see that one. But again, thank you for coming. And I want to say with this one, I just want to encourage us to know that God really does love us, and we are, as Africans and African Americans, as Blacks, we are included in the biblical story. So as we celebrate Juneteenth, which was the supposed legal end of slavery in 1865, but was it really? Was it de jure or de facto? What is an example of de jure, which means the law? For example, the Jim Crow laws that followed the Reconstruction period in the South are clear examples of de jure segregation, because the segregation and disenfranchisement of people of color was codified into the law. And de facto comes from a Latin phrase meaning in reality or as a matter of fact. I mean, like what's really happening. So in legal context, de facto describes what really happens, and in contrast to de jure, which explain what the law says should happen. So I would say slavery just changed its name in some of the ways it shows itself, but brutality and disenfranchising was the same. The enslaved were human beings with unalienable rights, which are God-given and should never have been taken away, nor could be given away. So I love this statement. It says, Black history didn't start with slavery. And that's a fact. And it is very healing for some people of color, including me. And I just want to add that, when I was younger in my teens and late teens, and I was very, very discouraged. And even though I had accepted the Lord at 10 years old in fourth grade, and then I got to really reading the Bible. Even then, I loved to read and study the Bible. I'd see things that I really didn't and I got discouraged. So I'm thinking, he didn't even really like us because, again, I was growing up in the 60s and with everything that was going on. I remember a lot of things that were going on. I remember my family crying when Martin Luther King Jr. was killed. And then I go and read the Bible and I just see these things where, again, for the most part, though, I'd stuck with the New Testament, and I didn't see us there, or I didn't know we were there as Africans. And it just really discouraged me that he didn't even want us first. He just chose us or decided on us after the others rejected him. And that really discouraged me. And I know that a lot of people, young people and older people, feel that way even now. But this is to show you that God loves us and he has included us in his story, in the biblical story. And Psalms 42:1 says, as the deer longs for streams of water, so I long for you, oh God. And that is my testimony. I mean, I love, and you will see the number of books that I have. I really do love studying the Bible or reading other resource books that would give me more clarity. And I love sharing it with others. But it is my intent with these videos for families to be able to sit down in their own homes or even on their own to at any point when you're going through this video, you can stop it and pause it. You can let your children read it or take turns or somebody else reading it if you're doing it with a group, and just discuss whatever's being said at any point in the PowerPoint, just stop it and discuss it, and then continue going on. And for fun, you can actually have something that you offer to, whether it be your children or people in a group, whatever, if they can answer the 5 questions at the end of the presentation. So I hope you enjoy it, because the Bible, Black history is the Bible. Black or African history did not begin with slavery. They did not steal slaves, but families, mothers, fathers, sisters, brothers, doctors, teachers, entrepreneurs, engineers, inventors, kings and queens, etc. They say the enslavement began in 1619, which means in the year 2023, that's 404 years ago. And in some ways, some of us are still disenfranchised in comparison to other races. So facts in the Bible and history, the country of Egypt is mentioned more than 600 to 700 times in the Bible, and only Canaan is mentioned more than that. The people of Israel spent more than 400 years in Egypt. And Jesus started his story in Egypt/Africa as a baby from 3 to 4 years. And I do want to add that the Atlantic Ocean was initially called the Ethiopian Ocean. And a map dated 1584, which 30 years later, names the ocean to the west of Africa and south of the equator as the Oceanus, and this Aethiopus word, and that's Latin for Ethiopian Ocean. And I actually found a map at a Goodwill I went to, and I kind of passed by it, and it looked kind of, it's brown. And I said, wow, that looks pretty interesting. And as I got close, I could tell it was Africa. But then when I got close, I saw that it said the Ethiopian Ocean. So of course, then I had to get on the computer and say, what was the Atlantic Ocean before it was the Atlantic Ocean? Everything kept popping up saying Ethiopian Ocean. That was the title of it. So again, things have been changed to, again, for us not to know our African history. So what do African natives call Africa? They call it Akubulon. And in Kemetic history of Africa, the ancient name of Africa was Akubulon. Akubulon means mother of mankind or Garden of Eden. Akubulon is the oldest and the only word of indigenous origin. Africa is sometimes nicknamed the mother continent due to it being the oldest inhabited continent on Earth. So I wanted to show you all the books that I've read and studied, got a little information here, a little information there, and all, to make this a full study and to give you a clear information and knowledge, knowing that we are in the pages of scripture. So I do have, like I said, Dead Sea Scrolls Bible, the Ancient Hebrew Lexicon of the Bible. And I will say a lot of these I did get from Amazon. So just to let you know, and I think it's good if we did go ahead and, order some of these, because it would be good for, I guess, for them, let them know that Black people are interested, and it will help the sales of these books. But I'm a word person, so I love this word study, Greek, English, New Testament, because again, the words are important, and back then, names were given to people, something was happening then, or it meant something, and it was just very important to study the words of what's being said in scripture. And like I said, Josephus was somebody who was born about 4 years after Jesus was born. So he gives a more detailed historical view of what happened back then, because again, he was born 4 years later. So by the time he was 14 or so, there were still people who were alive who had actually met and known Jesus. And that's why you should see part 1 of this video series, because I go into more detail about the description of Jesus. So there's the interlinear NIV, the Hebrew an English Old Testament. Remember, the other one was the New Testament. This NIV Bible here is very special to me because Bob Brown, the husband of Sandra Brown, he has passed, but this is a Bible that she gave me from him, and it has so many of his words written inside of it, and it just encourages me. And he was just someone who always took time to listen to all of my questions and just give me just great answers and explanations. Then there's also a Bible called the Holman Illustrated Bible Dictionary. There's the NIV, the Learning Bible. And what I love about that one is that it actually gives you a list and so much more information in here about ancient texts related to the Old Testament. So these are other places that you can go to get more information, and that actually, to me, it gives you more information on what's mentioned in the Bible, and you can see it more so. And then there's the Tony Evans Study Bible, the Cultural Background Study Bible, that's the African Bible Commentary, Black People in the Bible by Randolph Jackson. Then there's this deluxe Then and Now Bible Maps, and I love it because it shows what things were back in the biblical days, and then we see current maps, and how things have changed. There's a book called Stolen Legacy. It talks about how when Alexander the Great, they call him the Great, went to Alexandria, that they already were very intelligent people. There was a somewhat college that was going on there, and he just stole it and took credit for all that they had already done. But there's also a good, it's called the Original African Heritage Bible, and it's the King James Version. This is the ancient Egyptian religion, and I just want you to know that initially, when they began, the Egyptians believed in things like their gods were like the sun, the moon, waters, different kind of birds and animals and things like that. So we will discuss that later on to see what their beginning was as far as their religious beliefs. Then there's something called Blacks in the Bible, and then this other one just tells about the origin, of civilization, in Ethiopia. Then there's the Archaeological Study Bible, which gives a lot of good information. I'll show you some things from there, but this Strong Concordance, I think it got like at least 1,800, 2,000 pages, but it goes into details about a lot of the words, any of the words you want to look at, and it's called exhaustive because it has every word that's in the Bible listed here. It tells you, it gives you the Greek or the Hebrew interpretation of it, and it just tells you more about the word. But in that Bible I was just mentioned, the Archaeological Study Bible, it tells you things about like the disease and medicine in the ancient world, and how Africans had actually created a lot of the medicines for different diseases. And again, Alexander the Great and just other countries just came over and just took all of the information and took it and said that when they got back home to their different countries, that they had indeed come up with these different ideas, when that is not true. And I wanted to show you that also this Bible also shows you maps of before they created the Suez Canal, which basically separated Africa, which is now they call it the Middle East, but that word was created, and you will see that in the first part one, the first video, where I give more details. But this was all considered Egypt. Considered Africa, until they made that divide, and then that made it where it wasn't landlocked. So therefore they say, okay, everything over here is Africa, and over here is the Middle East, when indeed that was not true. So you can also get a comparative study Bible. This one can be done online, which makes it much easier. Go to Bible Hub, search, and like I said, it would just list probably 20, 30 different versions of the Bible when you put in one scripture. And this is how it is in the book. This one only has King James, Amplified, the New American Standard, and the New International right there at your hand. But again, it's so much easier just to go online on the Bible Hub. These are also books that, this is the Ethiopian Bible here in this guy's hand, but this one shows different pictures that in Poland and Russia and all other countries that show people, or statues rather, or pictures of people from centuries ago, and they didn't change the color, they said they are dark-skinned people. So again, all of these books have helped me to be able to do the 6 series of PowerPoints that I'm going to create. So the 10 Commandments, which is Exodus 31, is the New International Version. When the Lord finished speaking to Moses on Mount Sinai, he gave him the 2 tablets of the covenant law, the tablets of stone inscribed by the finger of God. And Mount Sinai, Mount Horeb, is located in the Sinai Peninsula. The Sinai Peninsula is the northeast portion of Egypt, which today called the United Arab Republic, at the north and end of the Red Sea. So since the Sinai Peninsula is in Africa, then the 10 Commandments were given to Moses in Africa. Interesting. And again, we'll see right here, again, with these maps, we can see that Sinai is right here. So again, it was not divided again at that time by the Suez Canal. All of this, even flowing up to Jerusalem, all of this was considered part of Africa. So Cush, which is Ethiopia, these are Ham's 4 sons. So Cush of Ethiopia, the Ethiopians, Mizraim, Egyptians, Put, Libyans, and Canaan was the people over the Canaanites, and he's the 4th son of Ham and the progenitor of the Phoenicians. So Canaan are Canaanites from the land of Phut, called Phoenicians, and they call it Phoenicians, the Greeks did to make it from them, taught the Greek their alphabet. And Phoenicians, from which the word phonics originated, Black people should know their ancestors are responsible for the written word and was stolen, and the concept was incorporated into the Greeks as their ideas. So the sons of Canaan and their tribes that they founded, the Hittites, Jebusites, who did find Jerusalem. They were the original owners or people that lived in the area where Jerusalem is. Then you have the Amorites, the Girgashites, Hivites, Sidonians, which are the Phoenicians, the Archites, Sinites, Arvadites, Zemarites, and Amathites. All of these Ikes, and many of the Ikes in the Bible are of African descent. There are many that are not. But I did want to show you that a lot of times when we're overlooking a lot of the ice, or we don't read the Old Testament because we see these ice, we're actually overlooking our history. And the Casluhites, again, it's from the Strong Hebrew Concordance. It's called South Calcium. It says a people or tribe descended from Mizraim, which is Egypt, the progenitors of the Philistines, and the Calf is Captorims. So these are the people, and again, you have to recognize the Philistines and know who they were. They were the large people that Goliath was a part of, but we will go into that more next in the next video. So many Caucasian commentaries and documentaries want the Canaanites to be recorded as white. Canaanites built many notable inventions in this world, and others want the praise of those inventions. Canaan descendants invented the alphabet, and the word phonics came from descendants of Canaan, communicated to Phut or Phoenicians, and their relative, their written word or language. Blacks taught Greeks their alphabet. So the sons of Ham are Cush, Mizraim, from whom descended the Egyptians, Put, and Canaan. And you can actually, pause this video and you can go through the different names and just concentrate on them a little bit. But know that these are all Africans. I will skip down to here. It says he was a mighty, this is Nimrod. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Therefore, it is said, like Nimrod, a mighty hunter before the Lord, the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh in the land of Shinar, which is Babylonian. So you always hear about Babylonian. And so just know that it was Nimrod, who was African, who was the beginning people of the Babylonians. And from the land, Nimrod went to Assyria and built Nineveh and Rehoboth, Ir, and Calah. And Nimrod built Rezin, which is between Nineveh and Calah. All these combined to form the great city Nineveh. Mizraim, the ancestor of the Egyptians, became the father of Ludim, Anamim, Ahabin, Nahnaim, and Pathrusim, and Calcium. Yeah, I'm probably messing up these words, but that's why. And it says, from whom came the Philistines? And we've read that word again, the Caphtorim. But again, a lot of time we just want to get past all these words, and we a lot of time to read the Old Testament, like I said before, but we're missing out on a lot of history because a lot of these people are of African descent. So I wanted to show this to show you that there are mixed races with Africans in the Bible. Now, Judah, which Jesus came from the tribe of Judah, he's lion of the tribe of Judah. Well, Judah actually married a Canaanite woman, which is African. So in Genesis 38:1, at that time, Judah left his brothers and went down to stay with a man of Adullam named Hira. There, Judah met the daughter of a Canaanite man named Shua. He married her, made love to her. She became pregnant and gave birth to a son who was named She conceived again and gave birth to a son and named him Onan. She gave birth to still another son and named him Shelah. And you would have to go back and read the entire story, but for a reason that God chose, he basically killed and Onan because of some just horrible, mean things that they did. And you, like I said, read and you will see what happened. But Shelah was not killed. So even though Judah did end up marrying Tamar, and you should read that story again, he did have one son, Shelah. So when you see any of the Shelites, they are biracial because, again, Judah was Shemitic, but his wife, they don't tell you her name, but his wife was a Canaanite woman. And so that tells you right there, that Shelah was biracial, therefore, so is his descendants from him. So the faith of a Canaanite woman, and our pastor at Zion Baptist Church, Marietta, taught this, and it's called Crumb Snatcher. And it's Matthew 15:21. It says, leaving that place, Jesus withdrew to the region of Tyre and Sidon. A Canaanite woman from that vicinity came to him, crying out, Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is demon-possessed and suffering terribly. Jesus did not answer a word. So his disciples came to him and urged him, send her away, for she keeps crying out after us. Isn't that something? He answered, I will send only to the lost sheep of Israel. This is one of the scriptures that I would read when I was younger. I did not like. The woman came and knelt before him. Lord, help me, she said. He replied, it is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs. Oh, that rubbed me so wrong when I was younger. Yes, it is, Lord, she says. Even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table. Then Jesus said to her, woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted. And her daughter was healed at that moment. So again, as a new Christian when I was younger, and I'm mainly sticking with the New Testament, this again let me know he didn't really like us. He's calling this woman, because I was doing the male-female thing then, I didn't like, because he was calling this woman, saying this, basically referring to her as a dog. But even back then, I did not know she was a Canaanite, a African woman. That would have really stirred me up back then. So he's also preached in the past couple of weeks about the Shulamite woman. She's the African love of King Solomon. So I do want to encourage you. That's a good, it's a book of love stories with him talking to the Shulamite woman and her talking to him. And like I said, it's not a long book, but it's certainly very interesting to read. And the name of the sermon was called Black and Beautiful. Not black, but beautiful. So depending on the version of the Bible you read, some will say black, that, this woman, and that she is saying, I'm black and beautiful. But some will say, she's black but beautiful, or they'll put a in there, and to say she's black, but believe it or not, she's beautiful, and that is not so. Also, this past Sunday he preached a message on Candace, the Queen of Ethiopia. It was in the Acts, the King James Version, in 8:27 says, so he arose and went, and behold, a man of Ethiopia, a eunuch of great authority under Candace, the Queen of Ethiopians, who had charge of all her treasury, the eunuch did, and had come to Jerusalem to worship. And I'm going to show you a map to show just how far this man went just to go to church. So, but this sermon was called Equal Opportunity God. And this is right here. This shows you right here where this is Ethiopia. So basically, in a chariot, he traveled all the way up here, past Sudan, through Egypt, and went this way over here. And you can't read it, but this is Jerusalem. So this man went a long way on that chariot to get way up here just to go to Jerusalem. He really did want to attend the Passover and just be there in the celebration. And he was met by Philip, and Philip baptized him. And it is said that is why they know that this man, when he went back, because he was reading the book of Isaiah when he was there. And that's why, Philip, explained to him the book of Isaiah. And then he asked, could he be baptized? And Philip baptized him, as a believer in Jesus Christ. And when he came back, he spread the word, back to the people when he went back there. So a lot of people would think, oh, Africans, they didn't even know about God until, in the 1600s when the colonial, people went over there and they told about Jesus, but they already knew about Jesus. So the queen that it says he was a eunuch for Candace, Queen of Ethiopia. Sometime her name is called Kandake, of the Amorites, was a queen of the ancient African kingdom of Kush, who was best known for skillfully defending her kingdom against the armies of the Roman Empire. Candace is a royal title from the Bible, ultimately deriving from the term Kandak, a title for a queen or a queen mother in the ancient African kingdom of Kush, also meaning pure and innocent. So the name Candace is derived from the ancient African language of Ethiopia. So next we will read about Zipporah, Moses' wife. She was a Midianite and she was African. And it was Exodus 2:21 and a couple more verses. But Moses agreed to stay with the man. But we're going to read more about this because there's more information. So Exodus 2:11, and if you want, you can pause the video and you all, in your room or your group, you take turns reading it. And then when you come back, you can, like I say, you can silence me however you want to do it. But yes, just read these and just study the scriptures as they are presented. But Exodus 2:11 says, many years later, when Moses had grown up, he went out to visit his own people, the Hebrews, and he saw how hard they were forced to work. During his visit, he saw an Egyptian beating one of his fellow Hebrews. After looking in all directions to make sure no one was watching, Moses killed the Egyptian and hid the body in the sand. The next day, when Moses went out to visit his people again, he saw two Hebrew men fighting. "Why are you beating up your friend?" Moses said to the one who had started the fight. The man replied, "Who appointed you to be our prince and judge? Are you going to kill me as you killed that Egyptian yesterday?" Then Moses was afraid, thinking, "Everyone knows what I did." And sure enough, Pharaoh heard what had happened and he tried to kill Moses. But Moses fled from Pharaoh and went to live in the land of Midian. Again, I'm going to show you another map of where Midian was back in that time. When Moses arrived in Midian, he sat down beside a well. In 16, it says, "Now the priests of Midian had 7 daughters who came as usual to draw water and fill the water troughs for their father's flock. But some other shepherds came and chased them away. So Moses jumped up and rescued the girls from the shepherds. Then he drew water for their flock." Now it's saying when the girls returned to Reuel, or Jethro was their father, he asked, "Why are you back so soon today?" And they told him, "An Egyptian rescued us from the shepherds," they answered. "And then he drew water for us and watered our flocks." "Then where is he?" their father asked. "Why did you leave him there? Invite him to come and eat with us." So Moses accepted the invitation and he settled there with him. And in time, Reuel, or Jethro, which is his other name, gave Moses his daughter Zipporah to be his wife. And later she gave birth to a son, and Moses called him Gershom, for he explained, "I have been a foreigner in a foreign land." Now, this is the question I'm always, pondering. When he asked the girls, Reuel, their father, says, "Why are you back so soon today?" What did the girls say? "An Egyptian," and it says it in many versions of the Bible, "rescued us from the shepherds." Excuse me. So why? I'm sure he wasn't dressed like an Egyptian. That was a long way that he went. But why would they refer to him as an Egyptian? Because a lot of historical books do refer to Moses as being African. And it's just interesting that that's what his daughters saw him as an Egyptian. So I just thought that was kind of interesting. So again, this is where he went. He lived in Egypt. This is where the Pharaoh was. He went all the way over here, crossed over here to the land of Midian. He was determined to get far away from that Pharaoh. So like I say, he went all the way over here and he went to Midian. Again, this is an older map. They had not built the Suez Canal. So all of this region over here was part of Africa. And again, I want to encourage you to look at part 1 of this series, because I go into detail, more about what was done, and at what point these different places, like now this is called the Middle East. Well, that didn't happen until like the 1500s. They named it, and you'll see other times to show you when things were renamed or when maps were drawn to benefit people. And it happens even now politically with school districts and for other reasons. But again, all of that is on the first video. So let's talk about Simon the Canaanite. He was a disciple of Jesus, the King James Version, Matthew 10. It says, "Now the name of the 12 apostles are these: the first, Simon, who is called Peter, and Andrew, his brother, then James, the son of Zebedee, and John, his brother, Philip, and Bartholomew, Thomas, and Matthew the publican, James, the son of Alphaeus, and Lebbaeus, whose surname was Thaddeus, then Simon the Canaanite, and Judas Iscariot, who also betrayed him. Now, you see who's listed near the end. The only person they put before him was Judas Iscariot, because he was the one who had betrayed Christ. But again, between all these other people, they list Simon the Canaanite. And I'm saying this to show you, because I'm going to show you another instance where they're going to list the person of African descent at the end, just as they did here. So let's learn more about Simon the Canaanite. It says in Matthew 10, I'm going to show you 4 different versions of the Bible. And sometimes they call him one thing, and then we'll see what they call him something else. But in the Amplified Bible, it says Simon the Canaanian, and it says Zealot. In the King James Bible, it just says Simon the Canaanite. In the New King James Version, it says Simon the Canaanite. In the New American Standard Bible, it says Simon the Zealot. And a lot of other Bibles do say zealot. So a zealot, according to the Strong's Greek Concordance, is a Canaanite. It says of Chaldee, and that's where I got to do my research, because there's somebody that's named from Ur of the Chaldeans, and that's Abraham and his people came from Chaldeans. So I got to look that up. But its origin means zealous, Canaanite, an epithet. And that means that whatever they did, they were very excited about it. And we can think about it. We can think about somebody else, and that would be Paul. Paul was very zealous when he was killing the Christians, but God saw that in him. And when he had that Damascus Road experience, God used that same zeal for himself, as in Paul was the one who wrote most of the books in the New Testament. He went far and wide, to the Gentiles, preaching the gospel. He was in your face kind of person, because he called Peter to his face, when he was, being hypocritical, as in acting one way around one group of people and acting another way around another group of people. So in the context of the New Testament, the Zealots were a party zealous for Jewish independence and throwing off Roman rule. Matthew the publican and Simon the Zealot were from opposite ends of the political spectrum. Because of their greater allegiance to Jesus, they were brothers and co-workers for the gospel. And it is unfortunate that today many believers seem to be more committed to a political party or a political viewpoint than to the Christ, the church, the gospel, and the kingdom of God. So Simon the Zealot was one of Jesus' disciples, and generally speaking, a zealot is anyone who fervently supports a particular cause. And we see that so much in our times right now, and everything that's going on, that people are fervently supporting a particular cause or person. And I don't even need to say any names, but tradition says that Simon the Zealot preached the gospel in Persia. So he even went way up there preaching the gospel and was ultimately killed for refusing to sacrifice to the sun god, which is one of the Egyptian gods. And again, we're going to go into see, and you will learn that a lot of the gods that the Egyptians worship, they were not, the God that we serve. They had a variety of gods that were, in our point of view, would be called odd. So we're going to talk about Uriah, and I just put on him, he was a decent man, and you're going to see why, I put that there. But he was a Hittite, which means he was African, and he was the husband of Bathsheba before David. So let's start reading about him. And again, you can pause this, and you don't have to hear me read it, and you can just read it yourself and have your children or your teens or your group, because I really want our children to know that we do have a history before slavery began, and that they can even see in the Bible. So you can get them a good Bible, a good study Bible that they can read and understand, and that you can go over with them and let them know, and have them even circle in their Bible and let them know that's us. Those were Africans. So 2 Samuel 11 says, in the spring, at the time when kings go off to war, David sent Joab out with the king's men and the whole Israelite army. They destroyed the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah, but David remained in Jerusalem. One evening, David got up from his bed and walked around on the roof of the palace. From the roof, he saw a woman bathing. The woman was very beautiful, and David sent someone to find out about her. The man said, "She is Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam and the wife of Uriah the Hittite." Then David sent messengers to get her. She came to him, and he slept with her. Now she was purifying herself from her monthly uncleanness. Then she went back home. The woman conceived and sent word to David, saying, "I am pregnant." Now notice that this is David. The Lord loved him. God chose him. He coming down David's lineage. And this lets us know that there are a lot of broken people throughout the Bible, and that God still loves them and he uses them. And so this is a way we need to encourage other people, because sometimes people think, oh, I did something really horrible and God would never forgive me, or he doesn't love me. And we can just tell them that the Bible is just filled with people, imperfect people, broken people, that that's when he shows his glory, how he can still use broken people. So next it says, so David sent this word to Joab: "Send me Uriah the Hittite," because he know if she's saying she's pregnant, now he gonna try to cover it up. And Joab sent him to David. When Uriah came to him, David asked him how Joab was, how the soldiers were, and how the war was going. Then David said to Uriah, "Go down to your house and wash your feet." So Uriah left the palace, and a gift from the king was sent after him. But Uriah slept at the entrance to the palace with all his master's servants and did not go down to his house. So David was told Uriah did not go home. So he asked Uriah, "Haven't you just come from a military campaign? Why didn't you go home?" So basically, again, he's trying to cover up, but he know what he's done. But this is a decent man. Everybody else out there at war and not with their families. And we'll see next that he was gonna sacrifice and not be with his wife. It says Uriah said to David, "The ark and Israel and Judah are staying in tents, and my commander Joab and my Lord's men are camped in the open country. How could I go to my house and eat and drink and make love to my wife? As surely as you live, I would not do such a thing." Then David said to him, "Stay here one more day, and tomorrow I will send you back." So Uriah remained in Jerusalem that day and the next. And at David's invitation, he ate and drank with him, and David made him drunk. But in the evening, Uriah went out to sleep on his mat among his master's servants. He still did not go home. But in the morning, David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it with Uriah. That was just kind of stink. He just sent this man's own death letter by him to Joab. And because he is a decent and honorable man, he could have opened that. But I do know that when they wrote letters, they put a seal on that, and it could be you could know that if it had been opened. But Uriah took this letter to Joab, and it says in it, he wrote, "Put Uriah out in front where the fighting is fiercest. Then withdraw from him, so he will be struck down and die." So while Joab had the city under siege, he put Uriah at a place where he knew the strongest defenders were. And when the men of the city came out and fought against Joab, some of the men in David's army fell. Moreover, Uriah the Hittite died. Now you got this is a trip. You got to listen to what David said. "When the archers shot arrows at your servants from the wall, and some of the king's men died, moreover, your servant Uriah the Hittite is dead." David told the messenger, "Say this to Joab: don't let this upset you. The sword devours one as well as the other. Press the attack against the city and destroy it. Isn't that something? Say this to encourage Joab. When Uriah's wife heard that her husband was dead, she mourned for him. This woman was saddened. She didn't know what David had done, but she was really saddened because he had came home. She probably got to see him, but he wouldn't come in to be with his wife. And she just figured she'd probably see him, when everything was done, the war was over. So she did mourn for him. It says, after the time of mourning was over, David had her brought to his house, and she became his wife and bore him a son. But the thing David had done displeased the Lord, and he had to reap. We reap what we sow, and we have to remember that. And I wanted to show you this part. This is David's mighty men that are listed in 2 Samuel, but I'm not going to list all of them, just listing this group, and I'm not going to read all of their names, but I wanted to show you, just like with Simon the Canaanite, one of Jesus' disciples, and where he was listed, near the end. This David had about 37 mighty men. In some places it says 30 men, but there were 37 in this list. And after reading those, then you see Eliam, son of Ahithophel the Gilonite. And I'm thinking, so her daddy was even out there fighting with his son-in-law. And then you read all of these are the other mighty men, but at the very end, it says, and Uriah the Hittite. He was one of David's mighty men, and he fought for David. He was obedient. He was just a decent man. And like I say again, there were 37 in all. And who is listed last? Uriah the Hittite. Just like with Simon the Canaanite was listed last, except for Judas Iscariot, who betrayed Jesus. Isn't that interesting? So lastly, we're going to go over Asetna. She was African, and she was Joseph's wife. So let's read the scripture about that. Again, you can pause, and you all can take turns to read this with your family, with your children, and just let them know again, here's another, African person that is in the Bible. So Genesis, in the Amplified Version, chapter 41 says, so Pharaoh said to his servants, can we find a man like this? A man equal to Joseph, in whom is the divine spirit of God? Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, since your God has shown you all this, there is no one as deserving and clear-headed and wise as you are. You shall have charge over my house, and all my people shall be governed according to your word and pay respect to you with reverence, submission, and obedience. Only in matters of the throne will I be greater than you in Egypt. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, see, I have set you in charge over all the land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh took off his signet ring from his hand and put it on Joseph's hand, and dressed him in official vestment of fine linen, and put a gold chain around his neck. He had him ride in his second chariot, and runners proclaimed before him, attention, bow the knee. And he set him over all the land of Egypt. And moreover, Pharaoh said to Joseph, though I am Pharaoh, yet without your permission shall no man raise his hand to do anything or set his foot to go anywhere in all the land of Egypt. All classes of people shall submit to your authority. This is what Pharaoh is saying to Joseph. Then Pharaoh named Joseph Zaphenath Paneah, and he gave him Asetna, the daughter of Potiphera, and sometime in some version says Potiphar, priest of Onan, which is Heliopolis in Egypt. So this is a man from Egypt. He was an Egyptian, and that was his daughter as his wife. And Joseph went out over all the land of Egypt to inspect and govern it. So this tells us right there that Joseph did marry an African woman, which tells us that his son, being named Ephraim and Manasseh, were also, again, biracial in that they were part African. So get ready, because it's question time. And when I did this with the church, there were prizes to the first 10 people who could answer all the questions in the chat at one time. And I gave them Juneteenth and African accessory, things like that for gifts. And I gave them 5 minutes to answer the question. So you can do the same in your room, have paper out, in advance, and have, pencils or something to write with. And so you can have your group answer the questions, and you can provide them with some kind of gift, or something that will encourage them. And it would be good probably if you said this in advance, that make sure you listen to everything that's said, because there's a question at the end and you can win prizes. So these are the questions. When did slavery end legally in America? Who are Uriah's people? Who was the queen of the Ethiopian eunuch? 4, one of Jesus' disciples was Simon the Canaanite. But what was he before joining Jesus? 5, what were Ham's 4 sons' names, or whoever names the most of them? So you can give them, like I said, I gave everybody 5 minutes. You can do however many minutes you want. And again, this should be very exciting. This is a chance for them to learn more and more, about the Bible and about their history. And after 5 minutes, or however minutes you choose, then you show them the answers. And so, number 1, June 1865, when slavery supposedly, I guess, de jure, legally ended. Uriah was a Hittite. Candace was the queen of Ethiopia, who the eunuch served under. Simon is listed that he's a Canaanite, but he was also a zealot. And then number 5, the sons that are listed. If you go back, it says were the sons of Ham, not the sons of Noah. So you go back and you can tell them, or whoever lists, either all 4, but if somebody just lists 3, they win. Or if somebody lists 2 and everybody else only lists 1, or however you want to do it. But again, these are the sons, of Ham. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learn a lot. And this is the end of the video. I'm going to stop sharing, and God bless you. And like I said, again, I hope you will follow through all of the 6 videos in the series, because again, there's so many more people, heroes and villains in the Bible, and I am going to show some of the villains also. So may God bless you, and enjoy your time as you go on the adventure of knowing that the Africa and Africans are very much a part of God's story. May God bless you and keep you, and may you come to know him as Lord and Savior of your life. In Jesus' name I pray. Love you. Goodbye.